Well, he was imprisoned in Siberia. But he escaped, and he wandered the world, trying to foment revolution everywhere. He wanted an anarchist society. But the only anarchism he ever succeeded in establishing was in his head. Now, he tried to start a rebellion in Bologna, almost killed himself with his own revolver. His revolutions failed everywhere, but he was like a man whose failures with women just spurred him on to more. Did you ever see a photograph of Bakunin? He's a giant of a man with a bald head which he covered with a little gray cap and a massive beard. Ferocious expression. He had no teeth. Well, scurvy as a result of his prison diet. Now, he seemed to live not in this world, though, but in the world of his own imagination. He was oblivious to money. If he had it, he gave it away. If he didn't, he borrowed without any thought of returning it. And he didn't have any home. But you could say that the world was his home. He would appear at a comrade's house and said, "I am here. Where do I sleep? What is there to eat?" And within an hour, he was more at home than his hosts. There was that time in Soho. We were eating dinner. And Bakunin burst in. Well, didn't even bother to knock. But it was his habit to appear at dinner time. Well, we were surprised. We thought he was in Italy. I mean, every time we had heard about him, he was in some far-off land organizing a revolution. Well, he almost knocked the door off its hinges. He came in, looked around, smiled his toothless smile. "Good evening, comrades." And well, without waiting for a response, he sat down at the table and started devouring sausage and meat in enormous chunks, and cheese, stuffing it into his mouth, and glass after glass of brandy. I said, "Mikhail, please, have some wine. We have plenty of that. Brandy is expensive." So he drank some wine, spit it right out, absolutely no taste. Then he began his usual performance. Preaching, arguing, ordering, shouting, exhorting. I was furious, but Jenny was the first one to speak up. She said, "Mikhail, please, you're consuming the oxygen in the room." And all he did was roar with laughter and went on. Bakunin's head was full of anarchist garbage, romantic, utopian nonsense. I wanted to expel him from the Internationale, but Jenny said that was ridiculous. Why, she asked, do revolutionary groups with 6 members always threaten someone with expulsion? Well, he had 100 disguises. Of course, the police were looking for him in every country in Europe. And when he came to us in London, he was disguised as a priest. Well, he thought he was. He looked ridiculous. Well, he was with us a week. And once we stayed up the whole night arguing and drinking and arguing until neither of us could walk. In fact, I went to sleep in the midst of one of his prayer orations, but he shook me and woke me up and said, "I have not finished my point." It was that glorious time in the winter of 1871, excuse me, when the Commune had taken power in Paris. Yes, Paris Commune. Bakunin leaped with his whole bulk into that revolution. Well, the French understood him. They had to say, on the first day of a revolution, Bakunin is a treasure. On the second day, he should be shot. Do you know about that magnificent episode in human history Paris Commune? But I'm sorry to say the story starts but with stupidity. I am speaking about Napoleon III. Yes, the nephew of Bonaparte. He was a buffoon, a stage actor, and he smiled into the crowd as 16 million French peasants lived in blind, dark hovels and their children were dying of starvation. Of course, he kept a legislature, and because people voted, it was thought they had democracy. A common mistake. Now, Bonaparte wanted glory, so he made the mistake of attacking Bismarck's armies. Well, he was quickly defeated. Whereupon, the victorious German army marched into Paris and were greeted by something more devastating than guns. Silence. They saw that the statues of Paris, draped in black, was immense, invisible, silent resistance. Well, they did the wise thing. They paraded through the Arc de Triomphe and quickly departed. And the old French order, the Republic, liberals they called themselves, they didn't dare come back into Paris. They were trembling with fear because with the Germans gone, Paris had been taken over by the workers, the housewives, the clerks, the intellectuals, the armed citizens. The people of Paris formed not a government, but something more glorious, something governments everywhere fear: a commune, the collective energy of the people, the commune de Paris. People meeting 24 hours a day all over the city, blocks of 3 and 4, making decisions together, while the city was encircled by the French army threatening to invade. Paris became the first free city of the world, the first enclave of liberty in a world of tyranny. I said to Bakunin, you want to know what I mean by a dictatorship of the proletariat? Look at the Commune of Paris. That is democracy. Not the democracy of England or America, where elections are circuses. And isn't that true? Where voters vote for one or another guardian of the old order, where whatever candidate wins, the rich go on ruling the country. The Commune of Paris, it lived only a few months, but it was the first legislative body to represent the poor. Its laws were for that. It abolished their debts, postponed their rents, forced the pawn shops to return their most needed possessions. They refused to take salaries higher than the workers. They shortened the hours of bakers and worked on a plan to make it free admission to theaters for everyone. The great Courbet himself, whose paintings had stunned Europe, presided over the Federation of Artists. They reopened the museums, set up commissions for the education of women, something unheard of, the education of women, and took advantage of the latest in science, the lighter-than-air balloon, which they launched one out of Paris to drop printed papers to peasants with a simple, powerful message. The message that should be dropped to every working person on earth.